If you want something swept under the rug, all you have to do is call it a Biden. Whether it's the laptop or the classified docs in Chinatown, Democrats can never seem to verify anything. And now that the smoking gun FBI bribe documents out, alleging the Bidens forced $10 million in bribes out of the Ukrainians, Democrats can't ignore it anymore. So they've come up with some of the most ridiculous and hilarious excuses we've ever seen. MSNBC is saying the FBI informant is just hard of hearing.
Frankly, in reading it, there are even some things that could be lost in translation between the Russian that was being spoken by this informant with the sources that he's referring to and the translation of that Russian. So it's not exactly a clean win or loss for anyone.
Absolutely, Allie. The highly credible, multilingual, extremely trustworthy, longtime confidential FBI informant, probably hard of hearing. He probably misheard the Ukrainians saying they bribed the Bidens. He misheard them every single meeting and every single conversation for 3 years. I get it. The media is having a hard time wrapping their heads around the Biden bribery bombshells. They couldn't believe the Ukrainians would hire Hunter Biden to protect them through dad. Hunter's a lawyer. He went to Yale. There's no way Ukrainians would call him stupid, even if he's losing his crack pipes, laptops, and guns everywhere. Hey, he's not stupid. He's just disorganized. This is now the 10th person connecting the Bidens to bribery. Can the media connect the dots yet?
The aim of all this is not to connect the dots. It's just to throw out a whole bunch of dots that don't connect, just to try to create this atmosphere around President Biden that he must have done something wrong.
Trying to create an atmosphere around the president that he must have done something wrong? That sounds a lot like the Russia hoax. Eugene, let me connect a few dots for you. You take a pen. You draw it from the laptop to the text to the emails to the bank records to the whistleblowers to the eyewitnesses to the FBI informants to the photographers and to the voicemails. And finally, the nickname, the big guy. I'm going to connect a bigger dot, Eugene. You ready? You're a reporter. You're supposed to be curious, cynical. If the Ukrainians have 17 tapes of the Bidens talking bribes plus bank records, and the President Biden has sent Ukraine billions of dollars for, quote, as long as it takes, you think the president's being blackmailed? Well, we know he's being blackmailed by the FBI, but is he being blackmailed by Ukraine? Eugene, you've always wondered if Trump was being blackmailed by the Russians, but he never sent $100 billion to Moscow. But the Ukrainians have dirt on Biden, and he empties our treasury into Kyiv. You don't want to maybe try to connect that dot? You're right. We can't verify it. But what we're doing over here is called journalism. We're trying to verify it. We're connecting dots. Eugene's a journalist, right? And he's not even trying to practice his craft. And get this, the media went from let's hire 87,000 IRS agents and all have them strapped to the IRS agents are just a bunch of liars.
You've got these other people who are supposedly these IRS informants who basically get up there and go, yeah, it was actually Donald Trump. When I was complaining, it was Donald Trump who was president then, and it was Trump's IRS and Trump's Justice Department in 2018. And here we have a document, again, that's complete nonsense.
Has Garbo not been following the news? The FBI and the Justice Department have been out to get Trump for 7 years. Trump's FBI tried to take him out with the 25th Amendment. Trump's FBI buried the laptop to help Biden win. Trump's own Justice Department appointed a special counsel to investigate him for a crime they knew he didn't commit. Yeah, Joe, you're right. The Hunter Biden IRS investigation started under Donald Trump. You're right. And then they immediately moved it to Delaware, where it went nowhere for 6 years. And what does he mean, supposedly these IRS informants? They're IRS whistleblowers with pristine records. One of them is a gay Democrat. Why would a gay Democrat IRS agent lie about Hunter deducting prostitutes from his taxes? Are you telling me that's not something Hunter would do? But here's an even better excuse. Listen to this one.
much of the conduct they were talking about was an election year where the subject's father was on the ballot. So the, quote, slow walking that they talk about was actually done by Bill Barr's Justice Department because of election year sensitivities.
So one election year slows an investigation down by 5 years. Goldman's bad at math, so he's in politics. I get it. That's why I'm in TV. But I didn't know election years were so sensitive for the Department of Justice, because they spied on Trump's campaign during an election year. Trump was impeached during an election year for zeroing in on Biden corruption. And now Trump's on trial in 3 separate cases. When? Yeah, it's going to be in an election year. Seems like the Department of Justice gets a lot done in election years when Trump's the target. But Jake Tapper thinks all presidents' families are treated the same.
Do you think that it's possible that because this was the president's son, there were extra sensitivities and extra protocols because of that that would have been extended to an investigation of a Republican president's son or daughter as well?
Extra sensitivities and protocols. The FBI interfered in both Trump's elections, 16 and 20. And the Trump family, 2 sons, a daughter, and a son-in-law, sat through dozens of depositions, handed over thousands of documents and communications for a 2-year investigation into a crime that didn't exist. Don Jr. almost got indicted for taking a worthless meeting with a Russian, while Hunter was taking hundreds of meetings with, I don't know, Russians, Romanians, Chinese, Ukrainians, Mexicans, and taking home millions of dollars after the meetings and after his dad got involved, and no one knows why. Did the Trumps ever get tipped off to raids? Because Hunter did. The Justice Department blocked search warrants for Biden's properties, but the feds rummaged through Melania's underwear drawer with impunity, like a bunch of pervs, all up in Barron's bedroom. Are those the kind of extra sensitivities and protocols that first families deserve, Jake Tapper? There's only one person here with privilege.
When we wrap this report up, Hunter Biden's going to have between 6 and 10 criminal referrals. He violated the Foreign Agents Registration Act. He was money laundering. He was racketeering. He committed wire fraud. He violated the Mann Act. The list goes on and on and on, but yet he gets a slap on the wrist. And the Democrats want to talk about, oh, the 2-tier system of justice is racist in America. Well, Hunter Biden's the ultimate white privilege guy.
Hunter should be in prison today, but he's not. So where is he? Hunter's in Malibu with the guy who picked up his bill for $2 million with the IRS, his sugar brother. That's Kevin Morris, the sugar brother ripping bong hits off his balcony while Hunter's inside. Hunter's got a plea deal around the corner where he's supposed to stay clean or go to prison. Does Hunter seem like he's going to stay clean? Fresh off a bag of Coke left at the White House? You'd think Hunter wouldn't want to be spotted by a bomb. This is not a classy family. And this was a family-wide scandal. 10 Biden family members alleged to be taking bribes overseas. But investigators were obstructed from pursuing leads. Couldn't go anywhere near Hunter's daughter, Naomi, who was going to Ukrainian board meetings with Hunter. Couldn't talk to Joe's sister, Silent Val, who Hunter was sending cash to. And they weren't even allowed to mention Joe Biden's name. When Hunter was threatening the Chinese to pay up or his dad was going to get angry, they were told that was off limits. The Democrats say the American voters don't care if politicians are corrupt.
The circus has come to town with the House GOP. And what's dangerous about this is that the American people and their needs are not part of their agenda. And they want to focus on this political theater.
Democrats wasted 2 years on January 6th political theater. They used Hollywood production crews while American voters were begging them do something about the border, inflation, and high crime. And this was after the Democrats wasted years playing political theater with Russia. Now, I've been covering this Biden corruption story for a while now, and I can feel it's finally breaking through.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.